Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 5 of HBO's The White Lotus, entitled Full Moon Party. So, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it because there's a lot to discuss here. This episode was hyped up leading into Sunday as the one to watch. Yeah, this is the one where the season takes off, or this is the one where everything you've been waiting for pays off. I mean, to a degree, that's true. The bar for progress this season is so low that this episode felt propulsive when compared to the others, but this episode was like, all right, let's say you got to drive somewhere. It's 80 miles away. And you have 8 days to get there, so you got to go 10 miles a day. But each day, instead of going 10 miles, you only drive one block. Then on day 5, or episode 5, you drive a mile. Yeah, compared to the previous 4 days of driving one block, you took a big step in your journey. But in the grand scheme of things, your 1 mile out of the needed 80 wasn't shit. And that's how I feel about this episode. It went 1 mile instead of just one block, but the 1 mile is still wildly insufficient progress toward, I'm not even going to say toward achieving a goal, but toward making me care about anything happening on the screen in this show. Like, this episode was hyped up as the one that was going to deliver, both by fans who had seen it and just via the story that the show was telling. Like last week, the show told us to expect things to turn up this week. They set up the Cougars hanging out with Valentine and his friends. They set up the various parties going on Greg's yacht, so the full moon party, all that. Timothy stole a gun. Rick's headed to Bangkok. Like, everything the show told us last week seemed to be in service of hyping up this week's episode. So let me ask the room. Did you feel like a sufficient upping of the ante here? Like, do you feel like, yeah, now we're getting somewhere? Because I sure as fuck don't. Like, the Cougars, Valentine and his friends mostly had an entirely harmless night of fun. Like, yeah, something happened and we'll talk about it, but did that feel like a sufficient escalation of their plot line? Do you now feel like, yes, this is finally going somewhere? No. The full moon party, just like the Cougar plotline, a mostly harmless night of fun. And again, yes, something's happened and we'll talk about it, but did that feel like a sufficient escalation of that plotline? I don't think so. And like, as a moment, you know what I'm talking about? I found it to be very underwhelming. So Timothy stole a gun last week and that looked like it was about to go somewhere, especially if after I was wondering like why he would even need a gun in the first place when he stole it. But it looked like it was about to go somewhere this week. Yes, we're going to talk about it, but ultimately nothing came of that other than just, guy talk asking for it back and being ignored. And yeah, I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but we're going to dive in a little bit more in a minute. And Rick does finally make it to Bangkok, and there's a great scene there. I'm not going to lie. But it was a scene that did next to nothing. I don't even want to say next to nothing. Like, it literally did nothing to further Rick's story. It was just a dope scene. Like, it didn't really involve the Rick character at all, other than the facial expressions that he was making in response. But in regard to Rick's story, his claimed trauma of the father that was murdered before he was born, how he's grappling with that when he talks to Amrita or Chelsea, his mission to seek revenge on Kun Sritala's husband, him getting the gun. It was the only thing, him getting the gun, that moved the story along at all. Other than that, Rick's entire purpose in this episode was to just be a face responding to the story of a guest character. Then you have Piper arguing with Victoria about wanting to stay in Thailand while Timothy is completely fucking smashed. Like, is that compelling TV to you guys? Like, did you enjoy that? Like, do you feel like those scenes of Piper talking about moving to Thailand and Victoria disagreeing were worth your time here? Like, was that compelling TV for you guys to watch? Where is this going? Like, I keep asking that, and I'm going to keep asking until this show just hints at some sort of compelling development that's even moderately interesting. So yeah, at the end of the day, stuff happened, yeah, but it was still virtually nothing, and none of that little bit we got was interesting. And I still am either unclear on where this is going or entirely uninterested in what they told me so far. Like, where is anything with the Ratliffs going? Like, where is this going? And like the most interesting way this plays out to me is not something that I'm even looking forward to watching. Where is anything with Rick going? We still have no clue. I think this is only 8 episodes. We are through 5. Rick has done fuck all. It is going nowhere. The Cougar storyline is going nowhere. Like, yes, there is an inevitable disagreement that's likely to escalate to something very extreme that's probably not going to happen until episode 8, making the first 7 episodes of watching them do fuck all be a complete waste of our time. But like, I am so uninterested in this basic fucking story about catty women being fake to one another. My God, that shit is unimaginative. I do not give a fuck about that basic fucking storyline. Like, the idea that Saxon and Lachlan might want to fuck each other is both gross and uninteresting. And if I'm being perfectly honest, it makes me wonder what the fuck this white guy is into. Like, because if you're going to portray brother on brother incest, you better have a good fucking reason and it better have a fucking point. And this feels like he just thinks that's compelling shit to look at, and I vehemently disagree with that. It's both disgusting and uninteresting, and I'm far more concerned with how uninteresting it is than how gross it is. But it can't be both disgusting and uninteresting and pointless. Hey everybody, I just want to take a small break from this review to talk about the various other ways you can engage with me on other platforms. If you're so inclined, and I understand why you wouldn't, I am an acquired taste, but you can join the Patreon where you can get extra content like retro reviews where I review old shows and movies to see if they still hold up today, Mike's Musings where I talk about shows I'm watching that I don't cover on the channel, or Mike's VOD where you can commission me to watch a show which I will then review on the channel. And if you want to engage with me and chat with me more directly, I also implore you to join the Discord and follow the Facebook page. I set up channels in the Discord for all of us to discuss the shows I'm reviewing on the channel, and I also drop new videos in there since it's the easiest platform for me to share to from my phone. The Facebook can be really fun because I sort of live comment on shows I'm watching, often while under the influence, I'm not going to lie. And I'll also share news there, both about television and film and about myself as well. So if you like my content, you want to be more engaged, you think I'm charming, or you simply want to show support, feel free to sign up for the Patreon or join the Discord or Facebook today. Links to all platforms are in every video description. Remember to share all my shit to your respective social media platforms. And now back to this review. So we open the episode with Guy Talk seeing Tim take the gun off on the security footage. He spends some time stalking Tim and, staring at him from afar, ultimately confronting him only to be ignored. Tim spends the entirety of Piper and Victoria's conversation, like I said, just spaced out. And after everyone is asleep, ultimately he decides that, or I'm not going to say he decides, but he walks to the brink of killing himself with the gun that he stole, which answers the question of, like, why would he take a gun? Who he's going to shoot? Well, he planned on shooting himself. But before he can do it, Victoria interrupts and asks what's going on. And he starts to open up. He's like, I can't go a single day without having shit put on me. But he stops himself short of sharing everything that's happened with her. And the episode ends with him praying for advice. Tell me what to do to God. And I want to pause right here in covering what happened to mention another thing that's been bugging me. This season was touted as having a highly religious theme. I even read I didn't read an article. I saw a headline talking about, like, White Lotus explores Buddhism. No, the fuck it hasn't. Like, let me just go back to my notes. So having a highly religious theme is something that this season was touted as having. Then we start the season. Piper wants to interview a monk. She's talking about Buddhism. I'm like, cool. I'm curious where this is going. I'm invested. They say they were going to talk about religion. They're talking about Buddhism. Cool. I'm in. And now here we sit at the end of the 5th episode, and not only has that not gone anywhere, but she doesn't even interview the monk. Like, this was all set up for a significantly less interesting set of circumstances where she just argues with her parents about moving to Thailand altogether. And if Mike White's idea of exploring religion is having a guy who claimed to be an atheist be reduced to praying, I'd say try a lot fucking harder. Like, that idea is neither unique nor is it interesting. And there is no case to be made about this show exploring Buddhism. At least right now, there is not. Saying Buddhism is not exploring Buddhism. Going to Thailand and talking about being interested in Buddhism is not exploring religion. Like, just keep going. As far as Piper and Victoria go, I will admit that those scenes were funny. Like, I'm not going to lie, I do find value in laughing. So there's something there. At least in that way, it was entertaining at times. But I mean, I don't even really have much else to cover. Like, They just had a humorous back and forth while Tim sat there spaced out in episode 5 of 8, like we just got time to fuck off. But whatever, that's what happened. Moving on to the Cougars. They too had some like really cute / funny banter with Valentine and his friends at the club. And again, I found value in that. That was entertaining. Like I laughed at times. I thought the one Russian guy, the bald one, I thought he was funny. So from that respect, those scenes were entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just frustrated with how this plot line, again, is mostly going nowhere, and the places it is going are really fucking dull. The major takeaway from these scenes is that Jacqueline needs to be the center of attention. She needs to be the leader of the group. She needs to be the star, just like she is back home in her TV career. And we see her dancing with two guys while she glares at younger women as if there's some sort of, competition that that she's helping the old lady team win a competition by out dancing these young girls. And I'm not trying to say old ladies team in a disparaging way to her. I think that's how she sees it. That's how I see it. Each and every one of them can get it if you ask me, but I digress. Some women come to their table and start arguing with one of Valentine's friends, and that's certainly not the Cougars vibe, so they decide that they're going to leave, but not without inviting Valentine and his friends back to their rooms, an idea that Kate does not support. The next few scenes are intercut with scenes from the full moon party, which I'm going to talk about next. But basically the idea is that everybody is really just partying hard as fuck. Kate's not involved. She's a married conservative living in Texas. But Lori, she's got her titties out. She's ready to fuck. Once the men start to leave after absolutely nothing has happened, and for what it's worth, I was blown away by the point of the men leaving. I'm like, you mean to tell me they hyped this shit up for absolutely nothing to happen again? But once the men start to leave, we see Lori whispering to Valentine. My guess is that she was probably saying like, hey man, if you want to come through and knock the dust off of this, you can come. Feel free to slide. This is my room over here. But once the men leave, Valentine does return, but it's to Jacqueline's room. Again, proving that she needs to be the center of attention and the leader. She spent the whole season hyping Lori up and talking about how they need to get divorced women laid or the divorced woman laid. But just as it seemed like that's about to happen for Lori, Jacqueline snatches the spotlight back. This is probably going to turn into a catfight where the women are going to argue about why married Jacqueline fucked the man that divorced Lori was supposed to fuck. And oh my God, I couldn't fucking care less about such a boring and unimaginative turn of events. And I'm really going to lean into unimaginative because these are some basic fucking ideas on a show that historically has been lauded for, really pushing the boundaries of digging into unique characters. This is some boring, unimaginative shit. Like, I really feel like Mike White must have blown his creative load by the end of season 2, and he's just fresh the fuck out of ideas. And I'm not gonna sit here and turn if I'm blown away by 6, 7, and 8, I'm not gonna turn around and be like, I was wrong. No, these first 5 episodes fucking sucked, and there's no amount of escalation in the last 3 that's gonna be make me be like, I guess I was wrong about season 3. No, this season fucking sucks. Anyway. Like I said, this is take your most basic female stereotype and make a plot line about it. Like, wow, that must have been just taxing for him to come up with. Anyway, I don't want to keep ranting on this. I'm just gonna move on. I have more rants on on nothing that's happening. I'm just like I'm beating a dead horse here. So let's move on. So moving on to the full moon party, it's more of the same. Uninteresting scenes, wasted time. We get multiple scenes, not one, multiple scenes of Chloe and Chelsea discussing like who they're gonna fuck or not fuck. Like what is this for 14-year-olds? Like what are multiple scenes? Like, I should fuck Saxon. You should fuck Saxon. I should fuck the brother the doing the magic. I think magic's cool. Like, what are we doing, dog? So Chloe tells Chelsea that she should fuck Saxon. She's like, no, I don't want to hurt Rick. And they just have that conversation over and over. And eventually they start popping pills. Saxon refuses until Lachlan takes one, which actually seemed to disappoint Saxon that Lachlan took one. But eventually Saxon takes one anyway. And can I say, Saxon saying that he doesn't do drugs and then looking disappointed when Lachlan did it was the single most interesting thing that's happened this season, and then it was over. Like we could have explored why a degenerate like Saxon doesn't do drugs and doesn't want his brother to do them either when he wants his brother to do all sorts of other depraved shit. But no, Mike White decided that he should have them make out instead, which is... Jesus fucking Christ, man. Which is precisely 0.00% interesting and example number 43 why this season fucking sucks. Anyway, moving on to Belinda. She learns from Fabian that someone was at the hotel asking about her, or I'm sorry, someone at the hotel was asking about her. And now I've heard great tales of how great of a writer Mike White is. And maybe this heavy-handed description of the person who asked about Belinda was meant to be funny, and I'm just so sick of this show that I got pissed off by it. But this scene was so heavy-handed to me that it made me wonder if we were being faked out and maybe somebody other than Greg was asking about Belinda. And if that's what happens, cool. But like, let me just read to you directly from the dialogue on the show. So Fabian says, "It appears you have many fans. One of our regulars was just asking me all about you." Now, let me stop here. Did any of you not think it was Greg by that point? Like 2 sentences. "It appears you have many fans. One of our regulars was just asking me all about you." Did you not then go, "Oh shit, Greg's looking into her"? Just hold that thought. It's like literally out loud. I was like, oh shit. Like, damn, Greg's asking about her. But anyway, hold that thought. Fabian continues. "Yeah, he wanted to know your name and why you're here. I think you've caught his eye. He's an American. He has a lovely girlfriend, but he certainly seems interested in you. I think he's quite rich." I'm like, bro, how long are you going to describe the person that was obviously Greg after 2 sentences? Like, it was so ridiculous that I'm like, maybe it's not Greg because the writing right now is treating me like a fucking numbskull who doesn't understand that it must be Greg, so they're just going to beat the shit out of this idea until I understand it. Or maybe it's a trick and they're leaning extra hard into it being Greg, so we believe it's Greg and then it ends up being somebody else. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it was meant to be funny. I don't fucking know. I still think that could be the case, that being that it's a trick, because I just refuse to believe that Mike White felt we needed all of those sentences to understand that Greg was asking about her. But in response, Belinda tells Fabian everything she knows about Greg, to which Fabian responds with basically, "Miss me with the gossipy bullshit. I don't give a fuck." Conversely, she moves on to telling Pornchai everything, and he's just like, he's the perfect man, right? Not only does he listen, but he vows to keep her safe, and he finds the lizard that's been in her room. And on one hand, the lizard thing is yet another super underwhelming payoff. The noises in or around her room, and that the show played up as something that we should be concerned about. The fact that it ultimately only amounted to a lizard being escorted out is a huge letdown. But I also think Pornchai finding it, like the context around this moment, serves the purpose of making him look kind of like that knight in shining armor for her, particularly at a time when she was super vulnerable, being concerned about what Greg is up to. So, and I think that's why they ultimately end up kissing. But again, a fairly significant amount of buildup with the lizard thing, particularly given the tension that they tied to like the rustling noises and whatnot, only for it amount to something that feels inconsequential to the show at the moment. But I stress the words "at the moment" because it can end up being a lot more relevant later. Like, it could even be something as simple as Belinda hears a noise in her room. She again assumes it's the lizard, but it's actually Greg or something like that, coming to kill her. And then lastly, to close, we have Rick. Not much to say here. Rick arrives in Bangkok. He meets with his friend Frank, who gives him a gun or guns. The bag was big enough to hold multiple guns, but Rick only seems to pull one out, and I don't see why he'd need more than one. But the conversation takes a wild turn when Frank, who is played by the guest starring Sam Rockwell, tells of his, let's just call it his journey of his journey of self-discovery. A lot of us have been on journeys of self-discovery where we learn about ourselves and who we are and what fulfills us. Probably not like Frank's journey, but Frank's story is one of those kind of like techniques employed in film and television where someone was telling a story that starts off fairly normal and events escalate and escalate and escalate to a completely ridiculous and unforeseen place from where you started. Like, it's kind of like this was like a more extreme version of like Christopher Walken's story to Child Butch in Pulp Fiction. But you all saw the episode, so I'm not going to run down all the details of Frank's story of Asian women and whatnot. But it was definitely an entertaining listen. And when coupled with the faces that Rick was making, it made for a really enjoyable experience. But while I readily acknowledge that it was entertaining, I do still also acknowledge that, at least as of right now, it appears to serve no purpose other than being a humorous way of, yet again, having absolutely nothing happen with Rick. He got a gun. That's it. That's it. He got a gun. He made faces. And yeah. While this episode did have some fun scenes, like I said, I laughed a few times. The scenes with the Cougars and Valentine and his friends were funny. There was some entertaining banter, more than any episodes that preceded it. I will give it that credit. It still was largely a huge nothing burger where fuck all happened and the stories were advanced minimally or not at all. And I'm still left wondering after 5 episodes where this season's going. It's boring. The characters suck. The story, what little of it we have, sucks because we have so little of it. Like, nothing or virtually nothing happens every week. And at the end of the day, this just feels like a show that's just not for me. You know, maybe season 2 was a one-off because Mike White consistently seems interested in a type of person that doesn't interest me at all. Like, I'm not obsessed with the rich and famous or the wealthy. And this show feels like it's for people who are. Like, there's nothing interesting to me about these people other than watching there's nothing interesting about these people other than watching rich people behave badly. And that just sounds like reality TV bullshit to me. Like, it almost feels like glorifying this repulsive type of person to consistently be making television seasons about them. Like, it's like it makes me think that you think that they're worth studying or something like that. Like, but the result of this show is always like, man, these people suck. And I don't need to sit through 3 seasons of a show for that takeaway. Like, this show proves that they suck both by showing them being uninteresting and by the show itself being uninteresting, showcasing uninteresting people. Like, maybe if you're obsessed with seeing wealthy people behaving badly because it makes you feel better about yourself, that someone wealthy is morally depraved and thus you could tell yourself that you're better than them, maybe this is the show for you. But I don't find these characters interesting. I don't find their stories interesting. I don't aspire to be like them. I don't need to see rich people being shitty to feel better about myself. And the show appears to be doing the absolute bare fucking minimum at making them interesting. This season has been a massive disappointment, and I truly do not understand how anybody is enjoying this. Like, I'm honestly, I'm probably gonna stop coverage here, but if I don't, I'll see you next week. But otherwise, I'm covering Severance. It just wrapped up. I've got a video coming for the outstanding Netflix series Adolescence. I've got several other shows I'm watching that I'll be doing Mike Musings for. Like, you'll need to be a patron to see those, but in the next Mike Musing, I'm going to be talking about Paradise, The Pit, Daredevil Born Again, Zero Day, maybe Little Righteous Gemstones, maybe Little 1923. Then we have Gangs of London that dropped the whole season this week. I'm about to really fuck with that all weekend. And then you got The Studio with Seth Rogen on Apple starting next week. So there will be plenty of content here over the coming weeks, meaning that I don't feel like I need to force myself to cover such a show that I think is so fucking unenjoyable. So until next time, whenever that is, I will see you then. Let me know what you thought in the comments about this episode. Am I tripping on the season? Am I tripping on the episodes? You think it was a classic episode of White Lotus? I don't know, but I'm probably done here. Something remarkable would have to happen in episode 6 to bring me back to where I got to feel like I'm coming back like, you know what? Maybe I was too hasty. But like, given the videos that I put out for the first 5 episodes, what do you guys think the odds are that episode 6 is going to have something that's going to make me feel that way? Probably pretty slim. So I'll see you guys next time on a different show. So until then, peace.